So I decided to write a book about grief because I'm a griever myself. And while grief is something that almost everybody in the whole world will face before their own eventual deaths, it's something that not a lot of people talk about. And so to have something that you can consume that's about grief as opposed to a conversation that you have to have with another person, I think books are just such a wonderful entryway into having the conversation, even with yourself, before you're ready to have a conversation about grief with other people. So, Your Grief Your Way is a daily devotional that's non religious that has one entry for every single day of the year, including leap year. And I formatted it that way because, at least when I was first grieving, it was really hard for me to absorb any massive amount of text. And so to have a tiny paragraph every single day to work through, it was as if um, I could offer grief in bite-size amounts, as opposed to feeling like grief was this monumental task that you had to overcome or accomplish in undertaking the reading of a book. It's something that you can literally pick up and put down every single day. Or if you have a special day of the year that resonates with you or want to do it as a weekly check-in, it's something that's really versatile and doesn't ask you to commit to the experience of reading a book in its entirety. So, from my work with grieving people, I find that people want to be seen and witnessed in their grief, but they also want to do something. So, in Your Grief Your Way, as I was pairing up quotes, and I like to call them action items, I took a closer look at what the quote was trying to convey, whether it was grief continues for the rest of our lives, resilience is something that we can build and keep building like a skill, or hope is a possibility that will arrive to you someday. And then I paired that with an action item, a visualization, an exercise, a journaling prompt that really put roots underneath the observation of that quote and says, now here's how you can actually bring it into your daily life with grief. So, one of my favorite examples of this is a quote about resilience and continuing on and drawing on strength to make that possible. And the exercise that I paired with it is actually the making of a paper chain. So, this visual component that can exist in a bedroom, a kitchen, wherever in your house you'd like to place it. And for each day that you live, either after a loved one dies or after a major milestone event like a death anniversary or an anniversary or a loved one's birthday, you can either add a link to the chain so you see it grow, you see your life continuing on, or you can make a chain to count down to something at like a loved one's death anniversary and count down to being actually able to live through and survive these days that seem really, really hard and impossible. So, what this exercise does for me and why I really love it so much is because after my mom died, I was really desperate for almost like reaching out for literal proof that I was going to continue to live and continue to survive after her death because I did not believe that was going to be the case. And so, something, even though it seems silly, like a paper chain or making tally marks on the wall, is literal visual evidence that I was continuing to go on after her death. And I worked with a client once and suggested this that she start to make kind of these visual markers of her surviving out in the world. And it was an activity that she actually brought her kids into in the family. And they made these paper chains that they strung up through the house of the days that they had lived after their dad, her husband, had died. And it was just such a beautiful honoring of this family that was bound and determined to continue on, not in spite of the death of their dad, her husband, but inclusive of it. It's proof that we can continue to exist in a world without him here. I think that's something that a lot of grieving people don't know at the beginning, and I didn't know this either, is that the practice of grieving is a skill that can be built over time and practice, because it's never just about time heals all. But Your Grief Your Way is very much a space where grieving people can practice what it is and what it means to them to grieve. So when they're finished with the book, or when they're finished with the book for the time that they're reading it, I really, really hope that they'll walk away with some semblance of, not, I have all the answers to my grief and I know exactly what I'm doing, but I feel like there's some foundations here. I feel like I recognize myself as a grieving person. I feel like when triggers come up, or when I have to go to this event around the holidays, or when their death anniversary comes up, I have something to grab onto or hold on to that can sustain me through whatever that trigger or that hard season is. Your Grief Your Way, for as much as it doesn't explicitly say it in the book, helps you put foundations or ground back underneath your feet after an experience that has really taken it all away. One of my favorite passages in Your Grief Your Way is actually a grammar hack. It's a prepositional phrase that you can add on to the end of sentences. And what it does is unlocks a lot more permission for you to be a different person in the aftermath of loss. Sometimes I find my clients struggling with this pressure to be the person that I used to be. And it's impossible for us to go back there. And that's a really hard thing to reckon with. We expect ourselves to have the same energy, the same capabilities, the same focus at work, when in fact, grief can impact all of those things and more. So this is the entry from January 24th and has received so much positive feedback online. So I'll share it with you today. When you feel confused, forgetful, overwhelmed, or like you're only going in circles, give yourself grace and mercy. Think about all the tasks you do in a day and add "while grieving" to the end of each. For example, I drove my kids to school while grieving, or I sat through a 2-hour meeting while grieving. Looking at your everyday to-dos through the lens of grieving helps remind you that you were doing everything you used to do before your loss occurred, and now you've got big, unavoidable grief in the mix as well. So when you accidentally put your keys in the freezer, you can let yourself off the hook. I misplaced my keys while grieving. And I just love the permission and the space and the doors that this opens up to ourselves to not have to be the people that we used to be. We are people who we were that have now experienced grief, and we can allow ourselves to be different people in the aftermath of loss, because we are.